Hi, I'm going to talk about the next book in my reading challenge for the year, which is a book I read called Big Swiss by Jen Began. Never heard of that author before. I am, hmm, I think that what I'm going to do for as far as, again, there are all these prompts, and I basically read a book and then try to fit it to the prompt. I'm going to say this book is a book that is out of my comfort zone. What it's about is main character is a transcriptionist. Okay, brace yourself. And what she does is she works for a therapist who specializes in sex and sexuality, and transcribes recordings he makes of his sessions, which is like what? Um, Super popular book. Highly recommended. And I actually had a bit of a problem trying to figure out why, other than was it totally titillating? Um, because this was a very rare book in my experience, that it was sort of like slow, 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 and then um, basically there wasn't an evil middle, um, where the author gets bogged down with what's happening. What actually happened was it started to get going, and actually, the relationship started clicking, and you actually had things actually happen in the middle, which is not when it's supposed to happen. Um, and then it just kept going until the end, and the end was kind of inevitable. I mean, what would you imagine that's going to happen? When it says right off the bat, part of the job is to sign a non disclosure agreement. Well, it's kind of like Chekhov's gun. That's going to be an issue at some point, right? Um, but as far as a writing technique, um, what made me very interested and curious about the writing of this book is um, the editing. Um, that clearly it should have started much later in the book than when it actually started, because almost the first half of the book I was like, oh my goodness, what am I reading? Oh, this is so boring, it's taking forever, people really like this, and it's like, come on, can something happen besides literally transcribing these therapy sessions? And okay, so this person is wandering around and she's lonely, and isn't this an interesting house that she lives in, and isn't this interesting set of choices that she's making or not making? Who cares? That's not plot. That's just basic description. That's like, okay, the chair she's sitting on is blue for like over 100 pages. I mean, but also describing herself as, well, she's blue and the people are blue, and I mean, I don't know. Um, it just, I was like, what is going on with this book? Until things started happening, clicking. Um, there was a story I wrote a million years ago, sent it in for publication, thought about it as soon as I sent it in. And this was snail mail. This is when people used to actually type it out and mail it in. So I sent it in, and then about a week later, literally chopped it in half and started halfway through and sent another version. And I said, okay, well, that first version, I thought about it, and, you know, basically was a lot of stuff that I needed to know and that I was interested in, background stuff, so that I would know what the rest of the story is. Please disregard my first submission and take a look at the second one. Editor completely agreed. Second version was published and said, hey, that was a really good job you did of editing that down, and literally all I did was like chop off like 5 or 6 pages of the story. I think this book would benefit from that kind of editing. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the author feels like it was necessary. Also, this book is supposed to be funny, really funny. Maybe all this floundering around and observations is supposed to be funny. I don't know. But it's really interesting to, if you're feeling that, that's how you can sort of hone your self-editing, is to read stuff like that and just be aware. What are you interested in? When I was first learning how to edit, there was this little kid that my mother was babysitting. I don't think she was even 2 years old. And I would read stories aloud when I was learning how to write. And if the baby was like fussing, I was like, oh yeah, this is a crap story. But if the baby was like quiet and interested in and listening to me, then I knew it was pretty good. And obviously the baby couldn't even understand what I was saying, but this baby could like pick up from me when I was reading it. If I was reading it in a dynamic, interested way, then it was a pretty good book, story, poem, whatever the heck I was writing. But if I had basically written crap, then the baby would start fussing. So that's how I'd recommend this. Would I recommend this book for somebody else to read? I don't know. If you want sort of the cheap thrill of the idea that somebody would be listening into your therapy session that you were unaware of, if you're into that, like sort of a voyeuristic thing, and then you're being a voyeur because you're also reading it. I mean, there's some weird psychological drama involved in that. If you're interested in that, yes, I would highly recommend. If you're like nervous about who else besides anybody, besides your therapist, I mean, are they talking to somebody? I mean, I have actually stopped therapy because a therapist started telling me about their other clients, and I'm like, crap, that means you're talking about me too. And no, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. I would say that's a major red flag. It was written pretty well. Like I said, the beginning's slow. So, I mean, it was an adequate book, but it could be triggering. I don't know. It was pretty good. I'm kind of glad I read it. Now I understand what people are talking about when they're talking about this book. I don't see the hype. I didn't think it was that good. But if you don't read very much, then yeah, pretty good.